This
I didn't
bill
say that
was
in
about
the
a lot
intro, but
more
okay,
than just
go ahead.
IVF. You said that it had to guarantee access. Access is guaranteed,
Okay,
or
Senator,
they've
but
harassed
can we
Catholics for going to
let's
traditional
stop you there.
masses. That's what this bill's about, Caitlin. No, Caitlin, you're not going to
I know you
stop me
don't.
there because you're misrepresenting what the bill is about. The
Well,
bill
let's
is
have
about
a
infringing
conversation.
upon religious liberty.
So if you can remember, a couple of weeks back, Donald Trump dropped a bombshell announcement on one of his policy positions that he wanted the government or the insurance companies to make sure that women would not have to come out of pocket for IVF treatment. And of course, this sparked a lot of controversy because you would expect to hear that from the Democrats, but he is the candidate of common sense. And speaking of common sense, Senator Tom Cotton goes on CNN and has to give Kaitlan Collins a reality check on how she's been misrepresenting the latest bill that did not pass. Let's just watch this exchange and try to make sense of it.
Senator, great to have you here because you and your fellow Senate Republicans mostly voted against this, arguing that it's a show vote. But Donald Trump, as you know, recently pledged to either have insurance companies or the government pay for fertility treatments. So would you have voted for a bill like this if he was in office?
Well, Caitlin, first off, I have to correct almost everything you said in the lead-in there, almost none of which was accurate about this bill. First off, there's no risk to IVF in this country. All 49 Republican senators, along with President Trump, support IVF. No state restricts or bans IVF. Second, this bill was about a lot more than just IVF. You said that it had to guarantee access. Access is guaranteed in all 50 states right now. You also said that it was about IVF. It's about a lot more than IVF. This bill would mandate coverage for experimental, controversial procedures like cloning or gene editing or providing fertility treatments to men who think they're women, whatever that means. It would also imperil religious liberty. I support IVF, as President Trump does. We also think that we should allow, say, Christian hospitals to operate their affairs as they see fit, according to the dictates of their conscience. Now, it's not surprising that Democrats don't agree with that. They've long persecuted Christians, like the Little Sisters of the Poor. They wanted to provide contraception coverage for nuns.
Okay, Senator,
or they've harassed Catholics for going to traditional masses. That's what this bill's about, Caitlin. No, Caitlin, you're not going to stop me there because you're misrepresenting what the bill is about. The bill is about infringing upon religious liberty.
Okay, just really quick, in case you're not picking up what they're trying to put down. There are three things you need to be paying attention while they have this exchange. Number one, when they brought this bill to the Senate floor, was it really coming from a place of good faith, or was it plain old politics to try to one-up Donald Trump during this election cycle? My money is on the latter because of the second thing, the language inside the bill. And I'll show it to you later in this video. The language in the bill speaks on treatments for men who identify as women. Why is that in the bill? And the third thing is, why would you place a mandate on a religious hospital to provide these treatments when it might go against their religion? This is the part of when the federal government is trying to control too much. That's why it should just be left to the states to decide. So pay attention to that stuff as we continue through this video. Now, really quick, she did misrepresent what this bill was all about because clearly she didn't read it, right? And that's what happens is they are very selective with the facts in order to push their narrative. And that's why you have to have Senator Tom Cotton come on and check her and make sure that people are hearing the other side of it. Let's continue.
Let's have a conversation about this bill and this legislation itself. You're saying that what I said was inaccurate, that this would guarantee access to IVF, which is what it would do. You're saying that no state restricts it, but no state, guarantees it. The issue, which I know well because this happened in my home state of Alabama, is a court ruling that embryos count as children. And then these IVF clinics, a lot of them closed in Alabama as a result of this because they're worried about lawsuits or about the state attorney general coming after them. That is why this is an issue. And your candidate, Donald Trump, has said that he would like to see IVF and people have access to this. So do you support guaranteeing access to IVF so a ruling like that one in Alabama would not imperil someone's access to it by clinics saying, well, I'm going to close because I'm worried about facing a lawsuit here or criminal charges?
Caitlin, the example of Alabama proves my point. You had the Supreme Court of Alabama ruling on an old law. They felt their hands were constrained by a law. And what happened? The political branches of the Alabama government, who are elected by and accountable to the people, promptly passed a new law that guaranteed access to IVF in Alabama the same way every other state guarantees access to IVF. This bill in the Senate was not about guaranteeing access to IVF, which is not threatened in any state. It was about radical, experimental, controversial treatments, like things like gene editing or cloning, and it infringes upon religious liberties, which again shouldn't be surprising because the Democrats are the party that want to harass and persecute nuns or investigate Catholics for going to traditional masses. That's why we oppose that bill and will continue to oppose it.
So let's do a little refresher, because remember that was a controversial event earlier this year where the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that embryos were actually people. And so it's murder if someone gets rid of them, right? And of course, through a democracy and the way the Constitution works, the people said, well, wait a minute, we don't agree with that. So let's update the law, or let's provide a new piece of legislation that would fix that ruling from the Supreme Court. And that's exactly what happened. And that speaks to the overall position from the Republican Party, which is stop allowing the federal government to be involved and just leave it up to the states. People have the freedom to move if they want to, if they don't agree. And furthermore, these rulings in these states, it's through a majority. I mean, it's the culture of the state. So in Louisiana, what's considered to be the right thing might be considered to be the wrong thing in California, because there's different cultures living in those two states. And of course, they're not going to acknowledge that, because Democrats or liberals, on the other hand, they want more government control. But at every turn, when you see more government control, it ends up being a net negative for our society.
But Senator, this bill would have guaranteed access to IVF, and you're saying that it would have forced people to do things against their religious beliefs. I should note, this bill doesn't require anyone to perform any operations or procedures. It just says that people should have access to IVF. And it also talks about having insurance companies cover the cost for fertility treatments, something that your candidate supports. So just to be clear, I'm not misrepresenting the bill. You can say you don't like it. You can say that you think it's a show vote. You can talk about those aspects of it. But this is something that was put up there, and it would have guaranteed access to IVF. So let me ask you, while you're here, given you're a major surrogate for the Trump campaign, his proposal here is that he would like to either have the government or insurance companies cover the cost for fertility treatments. Has the campaign explained to you yet how he would pay for that plan?
We haven't gotten that far, Kaitlan. I think I and most other legislators would have questions about the cost to taxpayers or the cost in higher premiums. And as always, ensuring that we respect the religious liberty rights of all Americans. Again, President Trump and I support IVF, as do all elected Republicans. But I respect any American who has a different point of view, especially if they're a health care provider or work with a Catholic charity and they want their religious liberty respected. That's what we would do. Democrats would not do that.
So if you're an American out there and you're someone who maybe is in Alabama and you're worried about having access to IVF, not because the state is saying that they're going to make it illegal, but because there's no clinics open in the state, because they're worried about Supreme Court rulings that could imperil access to it. And if the legislature had not acted, which they did under political pressure, if you're someone out there and you're looking at these two candidates here ahead of November, Donald Trump and Vice President Harris, and they see what Trump is saying he'll do, but they're wanting to know, is this real? And if there's no plan to pay for it, how do they know that it's a real proposal?
Well, Kaitlan, again, IVF is not at risk in any state, and the Alabama example proves the point. The legislature acted promptly
Why
to
did they have to
change
act
what
if
was
it
an old
wasn't
law
imperil,
to ensure
Senator?
access to because of Supreme Court decision. That happens all the time.
That imperiled access to
Courts
IVF.
make decisions. Kaitlan, courts make decisions interpreting laws, often old laws that haven't been updated to reflect changed circumstances all the time, and legislatures come back and they change those laws. That's what happened here.
Yeah, I mean, her face, her smirk, it just, let's just say it doesn't inspire anyone, in my opinion. Let's get back to a comment she made that, is this even a real proposal from Trump? At least Trump has proposals, okay? He has positions. He has policies. He has a record because he was president before. So I don't even know why she'd even make that comment. And the other thing is, I would think that she'd be jumping for joy because of that policy from Trump. I find it funny when Republicans finally do something that is a more moderate approach, because that is more moderate, that Democrats look at him or look at Trump with this face like they have a stomach virus, right? Because they're haters. Okay. They don't like the fact that he did this. He made that move when really Kamala Harris should have been the one that made that move, because isn't she for reproductive rights? Wouldn't that be in the same conversation? But they dropped the ball on that. Now, here's the other side of it, okay? Because let's use common sense here. We know Donald Trump is the most moderate Republican to ever run for president, okay? That's the first point. The second point, that comes with resistance from both parties. So he's going to face some resistance from the Republicans on this, because there's a lot of Republicans, hardcore conservatives. They don't agree with anything that he said regarding IVF. They don't. That's just the honest truth. Okay. And they definitely don't want the government paying for it. And this, I would say, is a precursor to what's going to happen in American politics is, you have Republicans and Democrats, but really what's happening is you have a populist candidate that is breaking American politics in half. That's Donald Trump. And it's not really about whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's more about what's best for America.
Okay, but my question was about the plan to pay for the proposal.
Again, well, we can review those details at future time. There's reasonable questions about the cost of it, either the taxpayer and premiums, and how we would protect the religious liberty of all of our citizens. But Donald Trump, just like all Senate Republicans, and for the most part, most Republicans I know, all support IVF. What we don't support are the kind of radical proposals that Kamala Harris has addressed, like on the abortion question. She wants a nationwide abortion law that would mandate all states allow partial birth abortion up to the moment of birth and deny life-saving care for any child who is born during a botched abortion. That's what's truly radical.
And of course, as you know, she wants Roe versus Wade codified into law, which would go up to viability about 24 weeks. Senator Tom
What
Cotton,
I know is that
thanks
she
for your
won't
time.
answer a question about she won't answer a question about what month it is appropriate to reasonably protect the rights of unborn children. Is it the 8th month? Is it the 9th month? She won't answer any of those questions, Kaitlan, because she knows that her radical views on these questions are out of step with the American people.
And Senator Tom Cotton, Donald Trump did not say on that debate stage as well, when she didn't answer that question, if he would veto a national abortion ban. We're out of time, unfortunately. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you very much.
Okay, so here is the bill that obviously failed in the Senate, S4445. You guys can always go look this up yourself. This is public information. You don't need a login, congress.gov. And you just need to be clear on where was this bill introduced, in the House or the Senate. So usually all bills will have a summary section, which is on the very front page. And the one thing that stood out to me, if I was a Republican, I would have definitely voted no, is in the second and third paragraph here. So it says that the bill supersedes state laws that limit or otherwise interfere with the provision of fertility treatments as set out under this bill. Now, if we stop right here, it's automatically a no, because there are certain states that they govern based on religious principles, meaning they're not going to force a hospital to provide IVF because it's against their religion, including laws that require medically unnecessary procedures or services in conjunction with fertility treatments, or that restrict the ability of individuals to receive fertility treatments based on marital status or sex, including sexual orientation or gender identity. That's crazy. There's no reason to put that in that bill. They know what they're doing with that. And then here's the other part of it that I didn't like. The Department of Justice may bring civil actions against states, individuals, or entities that implement or enforce limitations or requirements that violate this bill. So, yeah, again, more government control. That's not what we want. That's not what we need. So, bottom line is what? The best way to approach this subject is going back to the core of how our country operates, which is it should come down to the people. If the people in their individual states want IVF treatment and they want it a certain way, allow them to vote for it. If there are other states that don't want it, allow them to vote for it. Do not allow the federal government to decide. And here's why this is important. Because if you put it down to the state level, the language of the bill is going to be much more in line with what people want. See, the federal government, they put in things that are more like talking points and not actually what people are asking for. And here's my final thing is don't buy into propaganda from the news channels on either side. Whenever a bill is brought to the floor, the worst habit that these politicians have in Washington is they add stuff to the bill that they have no business adding. And also circling back to the fact that Kamala Harris, she doesn't have a restriction on abortion, which is laughable. And that's why you should allow the states to define that. And of course, Kaitlan Collins is, she's going to run cover for Kamala Harris, right? So that's my opinion. What about you guys? What do you guys think about Kaitlan Collins misinterpreting this bill and Senator Tom Cotton having to give her a reality check about it? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for checking out the video today. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.